So Jess, welcome back to our Real Estate Leadership Series. We've been at a historical high as far as Australian interest rates go. So tell me how some of your top performing agencies are adapting.
Well, first and foremost, it's a leadership challenge, and how the leaders communicate to their teams in high interest rates environments. What typically happens in most markets is volumes of sales will come back, and how leaders approach that with their teams of the businesses and clients that we work with, they'll generally grow the quickest market share in those times. And when their competitors don't have sufficient systems and go backwards, where businesses with great systems tend to leap forward so much quicker. And I think for me, I was with a client the other day and I was asking them where their market share was in their business, and they said just under 20%. I said, well, let's assume it's 20%. 8 out of every 10 homes have been still sold by your competition. So there's more than enough volume out there, but because we haven't got sufficient enough systems, we aren't able to capture more of that market share. So we talk a lot about that with our clients.
So how do the systems resolve the days on market though? Because they've been a lot higher too, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Days on market is, I always believe, I say to businesses, probably the biggest lever we have in our businesses is to control days on market, because effectively what that does is buy time. One of the big excuses that I see, and I talk about this a lot when I ask businesses, what's your biggest challenge right now? And they'll say time management. That's a poor excuse. For me, we look at days on market. Let's say hypothetically days on market goes from 30 to 45 in your core suburb. That's an extra 2 weeks that every campaign stays on the market for. So we've got, let's say it's 5 hours per week per campaign, and we do the extra couple of weeks over 10 campaigns. Quite quickly you can see there's a lot more time put into their campaign. So we teach a lot of our people about controlling days on market through efficient systems to make sure effectively we can get our vendors to see the market price correction a lot quicker.
And yeah, so that's a challenge at the moment, I imagine, for agents, because many vendors are still expecting those 2021 prices. How do you manage their expectations during the listing presentation?
Well, it's sometimes more so probably during the campaign than listing presentations, and it's about sort of thinking about the strategy that we have vendors, and them understanding there has been changes in the market conditions. And sometimes I always say that any property owner that comes to market in this country, they might not necessarily know what their home's worth, but they'll know what they want. That's another thing altogether. And this great skill of an agent is to be able to have the right sufficient systems in their business to get that vendor to understand maybe that dream price is not there, that it was there a few years ago. Because it's my experience in most markets that the longer you allow a vendor to stay on the market to try and achieve this dream price, the less they're going to get for it. And a lot of data suggests in this country that if the best prices for any property over 100 years is going to be inside that first 30 days.
So that's why in your program you teach the price reality framework, yeah? Do you want to talk us a little bit through how that actually works?
Yep. Well, I think there's one core component is when a vendor comes to market, they need to understand firstly how the buyers talk about price. And I think one of the things that we talk about a lot, for a vendor to understand that when a buyer comes through someone's home, or a neighbour or a friend or family member that someone might wander through, there's a difference between what a buyer has an opinion on price as opposed to what someone might be prepared to pay. And a vendor needs to understand they're two different things. It's a buyer, they'll come through an open home and they'll hand the brochure back to the agent and not have much interest in the property, and the agent makes contact with the buyer afterwards to see what their thoughts were, and they give an opinion on price. And that opinion on price is, in my experience, it's dishonest information to pass back to a client, because it's not someone who's actually willing to move ahead. So a vendor needs to understand in these times that difference between opinion as opposed to what someone's prepared to pay, and then asking the right questions to the buyers to find out that figure of what they're prepared to pay. For the vendors then to understand, through I say to most agencies we work with, you need to understand the range of emotions that a vendor will go through when they're on the market for sale. And I believe there's 3 emotions they'll go through to arrive at where the real price needs to be. The first thing is they'll go into a bit of a disregard emotion, where someone will come through and give them an offer that's maybe off the mark, and they'll totally disregard that. The second real offer that comes in, or second real buyer, they go through a bit of blame stage of blaming the agent, the market, whatever it may be. And it's only sometimes when the third offer comes in as the vendor starts to generally come to acceptance of where the market is. And so we deliver a lot of our frameworks of how we teach people. I guess essentially the quicker we can arrive to that destination of that third emotion, the greater the chances of you getting that vendor a great price.